You can make your own kombucha at home, again, for pennies on the dollar of what you pay at the store, and it's fresher. And so when we eat something like that, we're actually eating those phytochemicals that we don't even know entirely what's happening. In our film, there's a quick moment in The Need to Grow where on the farm he breaks open this romaine lettuce and there's this white milk that comes out of it. And it's some of the most anti-carcinogenic compound in the lettuce, and it's gone in about 24 to 48 hours. You won't find it almost ever in lettuce that you buy at the store. And so that opportunity to engage with food really at its peak freshness, you are doing yourself an incredible service by something so simple. And it reminds me of these studies that we have about people in hospitals when they receive flowers or when there's a plant in the room. Really profound just to think that something so small is having a physiological change. So the color green is actually very powerful for people to see. And what's so fascinating is even when it was a picture of a natural setting, in some of these studies that they put in a hospital room, they saw better improvements in mood and faster recovery and things like that. Just seeing nature again. That's because you're coming home, not just to be poetic about it. You literally are returning to who you are, who you evolved to be, which, in the grand scheme of evolution, it's just but a blink at the end that we've lived in these ways where we've been detached and we've been inside for most of the time. And so this connection, I think, is really powerful. It reminds me of the concept of what some people call biophilia, which is sort of a desire to be back in nature, a desire to reconnect because you feel different. And that's what we're going for. For a long time in psychology, I think the notion of emotions was that it would interrupt analytical decision making, right? When your emotions are so high, you're going to disrupt your ability to make rational decisions, right? And I think just recently, I was at a meeting with this fellow from USC who was studying brain science, and he was telling me about the discoveries at the base of the brain that it turned out we may have been thinking about it wrong, that actually the feeling part evolved first. And that feeling, that intuition was more critical to our survival instinct than the analytical decision-making, calculating part. And the more that I sat with that and thought about that, it was, that makes sense because when you feel bad, that's actually good because you've gotten a feedback. We're supposed to have that. Wait a minute, this doesn't work. This doesn't feel good. So unfortunately, a lot of us are dealing with mental health issues. A lot of us are dealing with, the struggles from so much that's happening in the modern world. And it's feedback that our life, something needs to change, right? So when we feel that is like, wait a minute, just going on that walk, why do we long for a vacation in a beautiful scenic place? There's something that our soul is yearning for. Why do we want to go and stare in awe at the waterfall? We have this lack of awe exposure right now, I think. And we can find that in the natural world in really powerful ways. And the more that you practice it, the more that you find it in things that would have otherwise been mundane. And like you talked about, respecting the life of an ant. One of my favorite ways to meditate is just to go and stare at some sort of living creature, whether it's a squirrel in my backyard or the ants moving around, and really, looking into their world, because it's not about a woo-woo thing. It's about respecting that they are part of this greater system, and humans are but one part of this larger ecosystem. So this biophilia, what acts can you do in the natural world that you change that feeling? Wow, my stress changed. Just being in a garden, just being outside, it changes you. And we have to, rebuild our desire for that and not dismiss it, because it may seem like, oh, it's just too small of a thing. But what else are we longing for? Why do we want the material? Why do we want all these status things? We're ultimately all desiring to feel good. And when I'm out there on the lake and looking at the gorgeous sunset, I've always thought, if I was a multi-billionaire right now in this moment, this would still be the moment. This moment of beauty, this moment of awe would not be any better. If I'm really plugged into the present, whether I have $10 in the bank or $10 billion in the bank, that's here for us. We are rich. We're all rich if we have those opportunities to connect to nature. And it is the true value. And I think what's cool is that the more that we do that, it's a positive feedback loop because our stress levels can go down, and therefore we start wanting to be outside more. We start getting addicted to hiking or addicted to running. And these are like the positive, we build those neural pathways, we strengthen them, and then we go, wait a minute, that's what I want to keep sending those electrical signals down those paths instead of how disempowered I am. It's like these are the steps that I can do.